This is my Dawes Super Galaxy. It's a 1989 model. It's got pretty poor paintwork on it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to strip all the components off and then rub the frame down and respray it in black. And hopefully it will look a lot nicer than it does now. Now from a distance it probably doesn't look too bad, but I'm going to move the camera in a moment and you'll see the reason why I need to spray it. Originally it was a turquoise colour, and after 12 months the paint was so bad on it that Dawes agreed to respray it, and they sprayed it in the next year's colours, which is purple. But even that is, I think, it's a pretty bad finish. Now if we go down to the top tube here, you'll see underneath where this I think it's a mistake putting the cables like this, because it's always going to rub, and you can see it's rubbed the paint off. It's supposed to be it was advertised as really hard wearing finish, and you can see the paint is actually bubbling up under here with rust underneath, and we got the same problem along here. There are various other places where the paint's pretty bad. Down on the rear stay here, it was absolutely awful. Just here, it was really rusty and bubbled right up. In fact, my cycling friend used to keep on at me about it. He said, you know, one of these days that's going to go through and you're going to end up walking home. And it did look pretty bad, I must admit. So I was prompted to actually rub that bit down, and I found the metal was quite sound, so I resprayed it black just to protect it, which is what's prompted me to do the whole frame now. Apparently there are quite a lot of Dawes bikes of this era that have this problem, so I reckon they had a problem with the paint at the time, because my earlier Dawes Galaxy, which is a 1980 model, the paint works perfectly sound on it. But there's quite a lot around this time I've got a paint problem. Anyway, I thought I'd show what it's like now, and then I'm going to show later on when I get to work on it. I'm going to take all the components off, and then I shall clean the frame up, rub it down and respray it, and hopefully it'll look a nice bike when it's finished. Well, here we are again. I've now got all the components off the Super Galaxy. I've got the frame on the bench. I'm just going to show you some of the problems with it. On the main frame itself, you can see down here by the mudguard attaching bridge, it's very rusty there. We'll just go in a little bit with the camera. Round here it's rusty, and I mean it looks black at the moment. That's because of the oil and grease on it, and the fact that I sprayed that bit earlier to protect it. All the paint's gone here and it's rusty. It's rusty on that bit there. This bit's not too bad. There's a lot of rust on the top, as I mentioned, on the top of the frame where the cable runs through. Let me just move the camera a bit. I'll just zoom out a bit. This is the bad piece here where the cable run across the top, and again there. And there's various other places. There's the dent in the frame where it slipped off the bike stand. This is around here. You can see there's an actual dent in the frame there, which I've got to remove. That was really annoying, that was. It was on the stand and the wind caught it. I had it outside in hot weather and it twisted around like that, and this particular stand, it dug in there and damaged the frame. Really upset me at the time. In fact, I bought a new bike stand now to stop happening again, but that's the frame. The forks themselves are pretty bad on the one side. If you look down, this side isn't quite so bad. There's a bit of rust there, but round on this side, you can see this here, look, it's really rusty here. If I get a knife, it'll probably just, look, see, it just flakes off. You can see the rust underneath, but fortunately it's sound, so once I rub the paint off and given it a rub down, you can see the shiny steel underneath, so it hasn't gone right through. But if I'd left it too long, it would have been useless, unusable, I think. You can see how bad it's gone. I mean, I reckon it's poor paintwork originally. I know I've had it a long time, but the rest of the paint seems okay. So it's only in certain places, so maybe they didn't clean it properly before they sprayed it. I just don't think it's fantastic compared to my other bike, which I say is much older and is still alright. I notice it's the frame's a bit bad down here as well on the chainring side, because you can't really get to that when the chainring's on there, but I'll have to scrape that off there. You can see there, look, rust underneath there as well. Fiddly thing to do, a bike frame. It's not the easiest thing to spray. cleaning it up. There's all these little crevices and places that it's very difficult to get to. Have you ever started something and wished how you hadn't? Because that's what I'm feeling right now. What a job this is. My God, I did it once before, but that was about 20 odd years ago, and I'm sure it wasn't as bad as this one. I mean, this is a right job to do. It's the most awkward thing you can think of, getting in all these little corners and that. Now, what I've been doing today is mostly rubbing it down, as you can see. I haven't got all the paint off, and my cycling friend Adrian, when he watches this video, he's going to say, oh no, he's doing it wrong. You've got to get all the paint off and start again. Well, he's probably right, and in the long run it's probably the easiest way. But on the other hand, a lot of the paint is quite sound, so why take it off? I've done quite a bit of spraying in my time, although I'm certainly not an expert. I used to recondition washing machines and vacuum cleaners, metal ones when they were proper machines made of metal. And we always used to rub them down, and if there was any surface paint that wasn't peeling off, we'd just leave it. And all you got to do is really feather the edges. And if you do it properly and carefully, it doesn't do a bad job at all. And I'm going to give it a go anyway, because I don't fancy getting all this paint off. It's a hell of a job to do. So as you can see, what I've been doing, I've been sort of feathering it. This white is the undercoat from the Dawes finish, and down at the bottom, this is where it was really rusty. I'm going to turn this round a bit so you can see. This is a really bad bit here. Oops. This is the stay that was really rusted through down here, and it's not too bad. There's a bit of grey on there because, if you remember from the other video, what I did rub it down a few weeks ago just to check it, because it was suggested it might have gone right through. The rust may have made a hole in it and would have made it perhaps dangerous. It could have collapsed, but it didn't. And so I put a bit of undercoat and some black on to protect it for the few weeks until now. So I've had to rub that off again. And it just shows, actually, this cheap finish I've put on, it's quite firm on there, and it didn't come off very easily. So it's not bad. So basically all I've been doing is I've been using a bit of coarse, this is actually off an old belt sander. I've been using this first to sort of key the take the worst off the frame, the top sort of coating, and then I've gradually gone down using like a 120 grade wet and dry, and then that's a 280, and then I use a 280. I've got a container with some cold water and some washing up liquid, which I dip because this is wet and dry. And that's what I'm using for it. And I've also got stiff wire brush to do around here, but it is very, very awkward doing a bicycle frame. It must be one of the most awkward things you can do, really. And I'm sort of thinking I wish I hadn't bothered. There's that down here, you can see the dent where I'm going to move the camera in. Somewhere there. That's that little dent where it fell off the stand I mentioned earlier. I haven't filled that yet. I've sanded it around there, and I've got to put a bit of filler in there, and then I shall feather that out, and hopefully that will cover that up. There is another little dent in the top tube here, around the other side. I didn't even know it was there. You can only feel it when you're rubbing your finger along there. It's the first time I've seen it. I shall leave that because I don't think anybody will notice it. I reckon that happened when I crashed a couple of years ago. When I say I crashed, my handlebars came off in my hand. The bolt snapped on the stem, and I was riding along at about 15 miles an hour, and the next minute I was on the deck and with the handlebars in my hand. And that, I think that's what caused that dent. I haven't noticed it till now. I just did the forks to try out to see. Let's have a look and see if you can see this. This is the forks, and I actually rubbed these down a little bit this morning, and I've put 3 coats of undercoat on there. Now, what I'm using is actually this cheap stuff. This is Poundland paint. Well, it's Poundland or B&M stores, I can't remember which, but anyway, it's £1 a tin. The only downside is you don't get much in the tin. They always feel empty when you buy them, but it's cheap. But you need quite a few tins to do the job, but it seems to work okay. So what I've done, I've rubbed this one down, and I've put several coats on this, and it doesn't look too bad to me. A bit later I'm going to stick a bit of top coat on. What I did do for the final coat of undercoat, I waited for it to dry. It's been a nice day today. I've been out in the sunshine, and it's dried it off nicely. So I used some of this wet and dry I use the 600 grade on it just to take any little nibs and things off of it before I put the last coat on, and I might do that again, just give it another little go over, and then I'll start on the top coat and then we'll see what it's like in the morning. But it doesn't look too bad to me. Now I did that by simply rubbing it down. I left the paint on the top part because it seemed sound. The bottom part I scraped most of it off and then I feathered it up here. So I don't think that's too bad anyway, it'll do for me. So I'll just put this down. I'll show you this last bit before I sign off. That's the forks. I've just put one thin coat of black top coat on there now. The secret of doing this spraying from these cans is not to put too much on at a time. Lots of light, very light coats are far better than one great big thick coat. If you put a thick coat on it, it will tend to run. So what you do is put a very thin coat on first, leave it to dry, and then when it's dry put another coat on. If you want to, you can rub it down between coats with some very, very fine wet and dry, say 600 grade or even 800 grade, it's up to you, but it's not always necessary, it depends. That looks quite nice and shiny to me. That's just one coat of top coat black on there, but I shall let that dry. I might put another coat on a bit later because it's still quite warm out here, and then tomorrow I can give it a little rub down and then put a couple more coats on, and hopefully the forks will be done then. It's just the frame to worry about.